the fact that you can't be productive on your commute, whether you're taking a train or a bus or a car, when I was doing all of those things, I would listen to a podcast,
Yep.
I would read a book, I would make a phone call, I would be very productive with my time. It would advance me somehow. So again, that's another excuse. I think people should just be honest. They want to sit in their bedrooms. They want to watch Netflix during the day. They want to run errands during the day. They want to do their laundry. I would respect you a lot more if you didn't bullshit me and you just gave me the real reason why you wanted to work from home. And in fact, I have data points because I have people that I know that work from home and they do all of these things.
Yep.
They're not telling people publicly, but I'm observing it because of how they describe their day or because they tell me directly because we're friends. They're going to, wine tasting during the day. You can't do these things if you're in an office. So I think if people would just be honest, I would respect them more rather than give me these, BS reasons as to why they want to work from home.
Welcome everyone to another episode of the Tech Leaders Playbook. I'm very excited to have Borja Cuan on the show today. Borja is the co-founder of 415 Digital, brings a ton of experience in tech leadership, but also valuable insights about how remote work is reshaping the workplace, the advertising world. And in this episode, we'll dive into both of those things, right? We'll talk about kind of the myths of advertising and you scaling your business and potentially how working from home may not be great for the customer or the employee, or it might be great. We don't know. We're gonna learn more on this episode. Borja, thank you so much for being here, man. Let's start with your journey. How did you get up to this point? You've been in the industry for a long time. How did you get into founding this company and all the stuff that you've done?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to the conversation. So my journey, we have to go back a bit because my journey started in 1998. So approximately 25 years ago. Right out of college, I was working with a headhunting firm, and they sort of told me about an opportunity at an internet startup that I might be interested in. And I ended up taking that interview and not getting the job that I actually applied for. They felt I was not qualified, but I got home and received a call from them asking me to come in to interview for a more junior position at that same company. And I took them up on that offer and ended up coming back, interviewed with the hiring manager for that role, which was a more entry level role for the organization, and ended up getting the job. And that ended up being even to this day, my most fulfilling professional experience outside of maybe co-founding the agency. They're both probably tied, and ended up working there for 8 years, seeing a lot of transformation. It was filled with ups and downs, highs and lows, going through an IPO, acquiring our biggest competitor, merging those two brands, going through kind of the internet bust, and then sort of seeing that through. And so for me, I
What
learned
company
a
was
lot.
this?
Yeah, the name of the company when I joined was BeFree.com, which was after IPO acquired by ValueClick.
There you go. Westlake Village.
And then, yeah, Westlake Village. And then ValueClick acquired Commission Junction, which was Santa Barbara based. And that too was an affiliate marketing company. And so they merged BeFree and Commission Junction into one. And sort of I was part of that journey.
Nice. Let's yeah.
Yeah, so that was 8 years of my life on the East Coast. I went to college in Boston, worked there for 8 years. And after 8 years, I felt that I wanted to change sort of where I was living, but also I wanted to change jobs, stay in the same industry, although, and on my own terms, on good terms. So I left, at the time it was Commission Junction. They preserved the Commission Junction brand. And so I was working for CJ. And I moved out to the West Coast, where I've been for about 16 years. And when I moved out here, I stayed in the performance marketing space, working for, at the time, one of the largest advertising networks in the world, a company by the name of Tribal Fusion. And I was hired to head up their performance marketing division. And that was a 6-year job. So I stayed there for 6 years.
Wow.
So two companies, 14 years. And then left that to do my own affiliate marketing and consulting for a few years, and then ended up working in-house for a company in the sort of job career space, and was part of their growth team, overseeing an annual budget of about 120 million a year in ad spend.
Wow.
And that is where I met my current business partner, who I co-founded the agency with. We overlapped there for a few years. I left that company, and shortly after I left, he approached me with the idea of starting an agency. And I was at the time actually on an airplane going somewhere, and I said, let me think about it and get back to you. I wasn't convinced at that moment that I wanted to do that. And so maybe 2-3 weeks later, I responded and I said, let's go for it. So
Wow.
that's how I ended up starting the agency.
Incredible. I'd like to know more about that. In the meantime, quick question for you. So you spent 14 years at two different companies, which, I mean, for people that typically job hop, not from a judgmental place, or they try to start one company after another without really understanding how companies work. What made you stick around for so long, and what did you gain by those years at those companies?
Yeah, I think for me, I always had patience, and I was loyal. Those are two things that come to mind in terms of sort of characteristics or qualities. Um, and I was surrounded by a lot of very impressive people, people that have been very successful in their careers, people that I looked up to, people that ended up becoming my mentors. And that provided a lot of incentive for me to continue working at these companies. I also uh, felt like I was given a lot of opportunities because of the effort I put into the work I was doing, but also the connections I was making. I realized at an early age that it's not the number of connections, it's making the right connections,
Absolutely.
right? People that can sort of teach you, that can mentor you, that can sort of help you navigate, what it is to sort of work at an organization. I was very sort of young at the time, but a lot of the people that I ended up sort of connecting with were much more experienced than I was. They were, 10, 15 years into their careers, where I was a year into my career. So I think, me taking the initiative to make a connection with them and asking them questions and being curious and really taking advantage of the fact that they were there to help me really helped advance my career. And I feel like what happens now is a lot of people, when the going gets tough, they pull the ripcord, right? Or they have a mentality of grass is greener, when in fact it's oftentimes browner. And so what I found is I went through highs. We had an IPO. It was very successful. We, were acquired. We acquired one of our competitors. Those were high moments, but we were also part of very low moments where we went through layoffs. And I was exposed to what that was. I'd never been exposed to what a reduction in workforce was. And I remember walking in and realizing how cold it was. Like people that I knew were just told that day that they needed to leave and leave
Wow.
their computer behind. And I would just observe this, and I would see people crying, and I would see people really that stayed were really affected in the implications that a layoff had. And I said, wow, this is really how business works, right? So that was a low point, and I survived that low point, but I also kept focused. And then what happens is, everything passes, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and I knew it would pass, and it did pass, and we survived it, and we got ourselves back to where we were, and things were back to normal. So I think, you know, it's very easy to it's kind of like relationships, right? Relationships are easy when everything is going well,
Hmm.
and your job is really easy when everything is going well. But I think you learn a lot more when things aren't going well, and you see those times through,
Agree.
because it really requires you to dig deep.
I agree 100%, Bora. In fact, looking at my 17, 18 years in this business, the biggest learnings years was 2008 and 9 during that recession. During, I think it was 2020 or 2021, during that kind of COVID timeframe when things were really bad, and then they were extremely good, and then now, right, when things aren't great, you see people's character, you see who's got who are the people that you want in the foxhole with, right? um, and one of the things, Higher Clout, one of the things we do is we're a technology recruiting and consulting firm. And when we talk to candidates, it's like, hey, why are you looking to leave? Why did you take this call with us? They go, well, we've been here for, a couple years. And we're like, and so what? Right? It's like as if they're saying, I've been here 30 years. And so, um, that's never a good reason for us. It's like, what's stopping you? Well, I'm looking for more growth opportunities. What does that mean, right? Inexperienced recruiters take that and run with it. They want growth opportunities. Why can't you get that at your current company? Well, it's this and that, and we never accept that. And so there's value behind not 2 years necessarily, or 5 years, or 10 years, but going through real stuff, right? Going through growth, going through tough times, through shrinkage, through you losing your boss and getting a new boss that you like or don't like, and almost being laid off but not being laid off, and thinking you're a superstar, and then your new boss doesn't know you from Adam. All that stuff builds character, and it makes you great, right? And so typically you don't do anything impactful at a company for at least after about 2-3 years. So if you leave every 2-3 years, you've done nothing. Let's be honest, right? You've really done not much. You've scratched the surface of what you can accomplish for that company, and vice versa. Because the company's also not necessarily trusting you with big decisions or boardroom conversations, because you haven't earned their trust yet. You've only been there a year or 2 years. I wouldn't trust somebody that quickly. So that's a lesson right there. And it's a lesson from an entrepreneur, a successful one, to say, hey, it's not always greener on the other side. Stay, grow, learn, experiment within your own companies, as long as the company obviously treats you well, as long as there's opportunities to learn and be mentored and all that stuff. So I really like that topic.
Yeah, I think, I value loyalty a lot. I know in exchange for loyalty, I need to take care of my people,
Absolutely.
right? You only get loyalty by providing opportunities and investing in your people, right?
Absolutely.
And so, I think when you have patience, and when you are loyal, and when you produce, and when you work hard, those behaviors and actions are what will create opportunity, right? So I always say just focus on doing you, and focus on getting better, focus on contributing, and you will be given opportunity. And if you do those things and you're not given opportunity, well, that's a different conversation. But for me, if someone is doing those things, they will be sort of, first in line to get promotions, both in title and responsibility, and in compensation. So I really value people that are loyal. I don't think it's very common these days to get loyal employees. I don't mean to be negative. I just think it's a function of sort of society today, and you look at resumes, and I look at a lot of resumes, and I see people just moving around. It's very infrequent or seldom that I see someone that has tenure, 6 years at a company, 7 years at a company. I see a lot of people moving around, and like you said earlier, when I inquire about that, or I dig into it, I kind of know already there's not a good answer that you could give me, to be honest. Uh, because I think if you do that so many times, you're creating like a pattern. Like no
Sure.
matter what, there can't be the same reason over and over. And if it's a growth thing, well, I'm always curious, like, well, did you sit down with your manager and did you ask them and did you come up with a plan? And, there's so many ways that you can create opportunity for yourself. But I always tell my team, one thing that is your job is to raise the visibility on all the good things you're doing. As much
Yep.
as I wish I knew all the good work you're doing, I have a lot of other things on my mind. So what I find is that bragging is perceived as a bad thing in the corporate world. And in fact, I think it's a very good thing. And I tell my team, you should be selfish and you should give yourself pats on the back and you should brag about all the good work you're doing.
It's
And
huge.
and I was taught that a long time ago. Like, what's wrong with sending a Slack message or an email highlighting a really good thing you did for a client? And I've often been told, well, that's going to come across as I'm being arrogant and I'm bragging. I'm like, don't worry about what other people think of you. Only worry about the people that matter and what they think about you. Not everybody here matters. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't mean that in a arrogant way, but only a certain amount of people are in control of your destiny outside of you. And that's your manager and that's
Sure.
the leaders of the company. They decide your upward mobility, right? So what you need to do is worry about them, and nobody in that group is going to care if you are bragging about something you did. In fact, I always thank people for doing that because I want to see more of that. And I want to see more people be okay with that and comfortable and not worry about their peers thinking they're doing something bad.
Borja, there was a. This reminds me. I had an employee who he would come in and out of my office, and at the time my business partner's office, all the time. He would come in and he would do a lot of brainstorming and ideation, and then he'd go and he would execute. And one day we were in a conference and we were kind of in a kind of a carefrontation, getting everything. There was a lot of tension in the room. And what I understood from the room is his colleagues resented him for this, right? And he literally didn't care. And I said, guys, let me ask you a question. Do you think he's coming in here to like kiss ass or like talk about anybody, anything? They're kind of were silent. And I said, not even close. None of you ever come up in conversations. He can care less about you. This guy is in here to win. Shockingly, all these people are good people, by the way. All of them are still individual contributors 7, 8 years later, just jumping from one job to another. He ended up being a director with us. He ended up, spinning off a startup for us. And so the reason I told this story is because you're dead on. It's like if he felt that tension about what other people thought, he wouldn't come in. He'd be too cool like them, right? He would be worried. What if he thinks I'm like tattletaling on him or something? And he was never that guy. He was a guy that came in. He was about his business and winning, and he won because of it. So it reminds me of what you said: is who cares what people think? Get what you need from the people that matter can help you with your journey. So that's huge advice. And Borja, frankly, Matt Higgins and I were on an episode together, and he and I agreed on one topic: is young people are fed such bad advice from even the Glassdoors and the Comparablies and all these organizations that almost prey on them, right? They prey on them for data and they feed them things that aren't true. If your employer doesn't let you work from home forever, it's because they hate you and they don't trust you, and you get this nonsense and you get side gigs and you should be doing this and you should be quiet quitting and you should be doing the bare minimum you can. What a waste, right? What a waste. And our thing, if you watch that episode, was like everything opposite. Don't listen to any of this crap. Do what's right for you. You're a smart individual. If you feel like you're being taken advantage of, you should leave. But don't listen to these idiots, right? No offense to Glassdoor. These are all wonderful organizations. It's not the point. It's the crap that's being fed to them via these portals is the incorrect one. And then 2, stop with the side hustles. Focus on one thing and just be excellent at it. You can't be a Uber driver and a website builder, a product manager and a recruiter and a dancer all at once. You got to pick one. Pick a hobby for fun, and then pick your career and go all in. That's at least my advice. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree on both points. I think uh, people are distracted, and they're spending too much time scattered rather than focused, right? And so where they get their information, LinkedIn is a good example. I see a lot of these articles where I look at the person that's writing it and they're pro work from home, and they're so anti working in an office. And I don't even have the time to write about it, or all these people that are pushing their agenda, no
Yeah.
different than politics or religion
Yep.
or anything else. Like, my point of view is when someone is so strongly opinionated about something, it's concerning because we already know that there isn't one size fits all. Like, there isn't one way to do something. There's not one way to parent. There's not one
Absolutely.
way to educate. There's not one religion that's preferential. It's what works for you
Absolutely. Absolutely.
works, right? Whatever works, works. And so, like, when people push their agendas in these areas or they give bad advice, which, as you said, there's just so much advice out there that uh, I just disagree with. And at the end of the day, really, with side hustles and work from home and all these topics, it's just like people are all over the place, very scattered, lacking focus, and because of that,
Yeah.
you are seeing it in their performance, right? Their
Absolutely.
performance is being compromised because they are just not focused. And I think as I look back on when I started my career in 1998, it wasn't like that. It was
No.
like people had a job, they went to an office, they worked hard, they produced. If they didn't produce, they didn't work at that company. And by the way, I know times evolve. I'm not
Of
sort of
course.
pushing against evolution and things getting better and different and adopting new things. That's not what we're talking about here, but I'm talking about the stuff that stands the test of time, that
Absolutely.
is not about
Like focus.
uh,
Like focus, loyalty, work ethics, all that stuff. I don't care what you say; it's always going to be around. You're dead on, Borja. In fact, one of the things I thought about is when you see people criticizing, any employer for like Amazon did a thing, very unpopular thing. Everybody back in the office, or you're laid off, right? And you see people talking about it. My response to them, that I don't have the time or effort or the need to do it, but is almost, you know what you should do? You're right. Mid-level employee. These people are evil. You know what you should do? You should hire them all and let them all work from home. That'll teach Amazon. It's like it's one thing for a real employer to do it and show the results long term. Hey man, great, good for you, right? Like you showed Amazon their mistake. You're talking about a 3-year employee who's out there talking about these things. It's like, hey, again, practice what you preach. Get your ass up, go get yourself $100 million loan, hire all of these people, and let them work from home. Don't manage them, let them do what they do, and show us how it's done. Until then, frankly, if I could be honest, shut up and do your job. And that's kind of how I feel. I know that's very controversial, but you just hear so much of this noise, and it's hurting our economy, it's hurting our employees, it's hurting our everything. Our kids don't know how to work. I have so many friends that their kids are bachelor's degrees out of college and they don't want to work, because the economy is not great. There's not enough jobs. They all want flexibility, top salary, and remote work. You shouldn't be looking for remote work if you're young and want to grow, period. So I'm sure that's a topic we're going to get into, but let's talk a little bit about a turning point. Was there a turning point in your journey that like reshaped perspective on leadership and innovation? And if so, what was it?
I think the turning point was when I became co-founder of the agency,
Okay.
because that took another, in terms of what it meant to be responsible for people and what it meant to be a true leader. It really changed for me, right? I managed people in the past, but that was part of a big organization, and there were multiple layers within that organization. But I think for me, it was becoming a co-founder and starting my own company. And at that point, I realized that I was responsible for people and their lives, their livelihood, right? And so that meant I really needed to become a good leader, and in order to do that, I needed to really understand what it meant, because it was for my company. It was different. Like when I think you're an employee, whether you're an individual contributor or not, like I think it's just different, right? When it's your own company, um, I think leadership is much more sort of important. Like I think for me, it was like, wow, I understand the human capital side of this business and how critical it is to the success of this business. And if we don't have a good plan, a good strategy in place to attract and retain talent, we won't have a business. I mean, we can always generate pipeline. We can always win business. I feel very confident that that is not nearly as difficult. It obviously isn't easy necessarily, but I think when compared to the people side of the business, I think it's much easier. And so I think being a very good leader is absolutely paramount to and directly correlated with just building a business and retaining employees and creating culture and things like that. So I think for me, the turning point really in my career was starting 415 Digital back in April of 2017. It was like very sort of eye-opening, and even myself as a leader, I have evolved. I made mistakes early in my journey as a co-founder I look back on and I go, wow, I was kind of blind to this, but it was something that I was very aware of, that I even stated publicly to my company when we had kind of an offsite, talking about a realization I had and a mistake or a failure that I had as a founder early on that affected the business and a lot of people that worked here, that I then recognized, and once I recognized it, I corrected it, and then we were in a better place.
Correct.
But I had to go through that
Oh, it's
experience.
huge. That's real leadership, because when things go bad, even as a director or vice president or even a CFO or a COO could always say, sorry, I didn't want to do this, but the leadership made a bad decision. We're going to have to let you go. Or even though this isn't me, I don't feel this way, we're going to have to let you go. When it's you, the buck stops with you, right? That's it. And you feel that responsibility,
Yep.
and you have to act accordingly. Borja, let's
And for
jump
me,
in.
by the way, and by the way, for me, the thing that it was, you didn't ask this, but I'll just tell you. I won't
Please.
elaborate too much on it unless it's of interest. But it was, I put clients before employees.
As you
That
should.
was the one
At that
that
time.
was at that time. I
At
put
that time.
clients before employees, and what
Got
I
it.
didn't realize is you have to put employees before clients,
Yes.
not
I
and
misunderstood
the
you. I
reason,
agree.
yeah, and because if you don't, you will create a culture in which people are unhappy and burned out and tired, and that directly affects client services, right? And
Yep.
then the customer's affected. So if you invest a lot, and it became one of our sort of values at the company, is employee over client, right? If push comes to shove, we will side with the employee over the client, right? And that's really important in investing in your team and advocating for your team. And I'm not saying clients aren't important and we're not customer centric. And if we make a mistake, we don't fall on our sword. I think here it's, you can't put, you have to prioritize the well-being and happiness of your employee. Otherwise, everything else falls apart.
And this is, first of all, kudos to you, because again, this sounds easy. Okay, anyone can say this because again, it's a phrase: employees first, employees over. But this is like real. Like I've lost and or fired three clients that I can think of over either the people didn't service them well according to them, or they accused one of my most long-standing, very honest people of something I did not like at all. That client I fired. But looking back, when those employees aren't with you, there is a little bit of a, God, did I do the right thing? I lost these customers. And you know what? For what reason? After all these years and those employees aren't even here. But I don't have any regrets, right? Looking back, I did the right thing because at that moment I needed to support my employees who were not wrong in that situation, even if it was small, silly mistakes that no client should threaten or ask to not work with you. So that's a tough one, I got to tell you. But I do agree with you. As long as you have the right employees, you should always back them up, because long term, they're going to look to you for that safety, to take risks, to do the right thing, knowing that it's not always the most revenue driving thing, and it's sometimes risky and you could lose a client over it. So much harder to do than say, though. So I'm glad you brought that up. Let's talk a little bit about the opportunities and challenges of remote work, because as opinionated as I am in this world, one, my LA headquarters is a hybrid work environment, and two, I have teams in 4 different countries that are at this point fully remote. We shut down the offices. We don't have offices in one of them, and we never had offices in the others. So absolutely it could work, especially a hybrid scenario. But I guess let's talk a little bit about the opportunities it creates and some of the, I guess, challenges it creates when you've got a remote team.
Yeah, I mean, I wish that when it comes to remote work, people would just be honest about the reasons they want to work remotely, right? Like, rather than tell me I'm more productive. That's the one I hate the most.
Yeah.
I'm more productive, or I don't have to commute, or my time commuting is wasteful. Like, all of these things are what I would call excuses. They're just excuses. Why can you not be more productive in an office? My office, we have a 36,000 square foot space here. It's got plenty of work areas, quiet areas, large spaces, coffee, drinks, snacks. It's got music. It has everything. There's no better space than to be productive here. So the fact that you can't be productive on your commute, whether you're taking a train or a bus or a car, when I was doing all of those things, I would listen to a podcast.
Yep.
I would read a book. I would make a phone call. I would be very productive with my time. It would advance me somehow. So again, that's another excuse. I think people should just be honest. They want to sit in their bedrooms. They want to watch Netflix during the day. They want to run errands during the day. They want to do their laundry. I would respect you a lot more if you didn't bullshit me and you just gave me the real reason why you wanted to work from home. And in fact, I have data points because I have people that I know that work from home and they do all of these things.
Yep.
They're not telling people publicly, but I'm observing it because of how they describe their day, or because they tell me directly because we're friends. They're going to, wine tasting during the day. You can't do these things if you're in an office. So I think if people would just be honest, I would respect them more rather than give me these, BS reasons as to why they want to work from home. I'm not saying work from home can't work. I'm saying what I believe is productivity and learning is more in an office than it is at home for most people. Some exceptions.
Maybe 10 to 20% of the people I've seen, it's rare, that are as productive, I wouldn't say more, in a hybrid scenario, not a fully remote. And that's where I think the hybrid really has a place. I think it's here to stay because it gives you that opportunity to have maybe one of those days where it is a little clunky and funky. I think remote work is phenomenal for reactive work, right? Just hack through those 100 emails that you never responded to, or those, whatever it is. But when it comes to innovation and collaboration and ideation and any other eon, there's no better place than to be surrounded by colleagues and mentors and young people to energize you, older people too, with their crystallized knowledge-based intelligence to guide you and mentor you. All those things you can't do remotely.
And I've seen it because we've observed it, right? We've looked at people that have started on the same day, remote versus hybrid or in office, and where we've seen a big discrepancy is in learning and advancement and the time it takes for people to learn and advance. People that don't spend time in the office are not learning as much. They're not learning as quickly. Because, and it makes sense. I mean, in our office, you have access to the leaders. You can talk to them. You can ask them questions. I know people say, well, we have Slack and we have Zoom and all these things, but you're much less likely to ask a question, depending on the depth of that question too, if it's on Slack versus if you're just right next to a person, right? And also, a lot of people don't want to have these conversations on Slack, right? They actually want to do it in person, right? And so I think where we landed as an agency is we do believe in giving people freedom and flexibility because I think everybody values that. They place a premium on that. And so we believe that the right sort of formula for our business is to offer a hybrid model, which means you are in the office 3 days a week and you can work from home 2 days a week. And when you work from home, we have certain policies around your work environment. It can't be a coffee shop. You can't be on the beach. But you can work from home 2 days a week and work in an office 3 days a week. And people seem to be very happy with that. And I think that's the right balance for us. And frankly, we consider the fact that our team is in an office to be a competitive advantage. We actually talk about it in the sales process. We want some of our clients to know that we have people that are in the office collaborating together, working together, talking to each other, building relationships with each other. That translates into value to a client versus your person is working from home. They're sitting in their room and maybe clients think like we do, right? Maybe they think these people are slacking. They're not really working hard. They're in their bedrooms. They're not getting dressed in the morning. They're wearing their pajamas and they're not really focused because they have a dog that they have to walk or they have a baby that they're taking care of or who knows what. So like from a client standpoint, I think people really value in office, right? And by the way, they know we have hybrid, but I do think that the component of some 3 days a week, we're actually together collaborating, doing in-person training, having intentional meetings, lunches, things like that. I think there's a competitive advantage to being a business that offers that type of schedule.
Borja, do you when you do your 3-2 split, is it they can work from home any 2 days or is it set by the company? And what days do you do?
Yeah, so the reason I believe in at least in this office, and our team in Mexico actually doesn't work from home. They're in office 5 days a week, but our team in LA, they pick the days. Here where I am, we decided that we're going to do it on the same days so that we would overlap on those days. And I'm actually moving LA to that model as well because I told them there's a reason why we're working in the office. It's so that we're together. So if people aren't together, why are we doing it? And so we have that set up. And we also take it a bit further, which is to say, and again, if people had their choice, this wouldn't be in place, but we don't allow you to work from home on a Friday and a Monday or Thursday and Friday so that you can't not be in an office for 4 days straight. So like there are some you can't, or if you're sick 2 days that week, then you have to be in the office 3 days that week. You can't then take 2 days. So we have had to spell this out because we would have people take PTO for 3 days and then they would work from home 2 days. So they weren't in an office for a week. So we had to be very specific with some of these what if scenarios.
Sure.
But usually what we have is a scenario where everybody is in the office on the same days because that's the reason we're doing this.
That's exactly right. So we've gone back and forth on this concept, and it's a challenging one because you want to, especially when it's like one day, you want people to have the flexibility. The challenge is the whole point was to be in an office together and have meetings together. And then what you're seeing is one person takes it on Monday, next one on Tuesday, next one on Wednesday, next one on Thursday. And eventually the team is never actually together. And you always have to have a Zoom meeting because there's always one or two people that are work from home versus everyone works from home on Mondays or Thursdays, unless something changes, right? Then shit happens, life happens. So that's interesting. Well, one funny concept is the people that shouldn't be working from home are the ones that are requesting it the most. I'll give you an example. It's understandable if a 40-something-year-old man or woman, is like, hey, I like working from home because I got dropped by the time I drop off my kids and go to the gym and come back home and then, got to go pick them up. It's just a hot mess. It's better that I work from home. I want to be around my kids. Those people can't wait to be in an office, right? They like hybrid, but they want an office to go to. The young folks almost demand remote, right? Which is, I personally think is terrible for them, even if the company's fine with it, even if it's very effective, even if you're the most effective person there and you're less effective in the office, I think it's terrible. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would tell my own children to find a job where you are required to be in the office, as are your peers, so that you can actually develop certain skills that you otherwise will not be able to develop sitting in your apartment. I looked forward to most when I worked at that first company I told you about for 8 years. One of the most fulfilling parts of my job was going there to hang out with my friends. So I was working at a company and learning and contributing, but also hanging out with my friends. What better combination is there? So we would look forward to lunch together. We'd go out to go and grab Subway, or we'd go get Chinese food. After lunch, we played on the softball team, or we'd go to happy hour, or we would do things once or twice a week, and we would look forward to those things. And so if I didn't do that, I would not have developed connections or relationships that I needed in order to excel at that company and move up, out of sight, out of mind. And so there's that component, which is the relationships and the connections that you're building that you won't be able to do through this. You can start a relationship like this, but to cement it, you have to do it in person, right? And the other thing is like soft skills and like having meetings in person and presenting in person and communicating. Like, how are you going to develop these soft skills if you are sitting behind a screen? Like, you need to just interact with people and hear them talk and feel their energy and just be in a room with someone or next to them. It's just not the same. I think a lot of people are going to not develop the ability to communicate, which to me is the single most important skill set in life, business and otherwise, is your ability to communicate. That is going to take you far in life. And I think if you're sitting behind the screen at home, you're going to do yourself a disservice. You're not going to really develop that skill set to the degree that you would otherwise.
I agree. What's interesting is, I don't know if you, hopefully it doesn't offend anyone, but if you remember in high school or middle school, the kids that used to be homeschooled, how do we feel about those kids, right? Did we find that they were a little awkward, socially awkward? They didn't always know how to, they didn't always have friends. They didn't always know how to contribute to a conversation. They weren't always invited to parties, so on and so forth. So I feel like knowing that, why would you then want to be the homeschooled kid is basically what it is, especially in a system, let's say, that the entire company's not remote. So it's odd to me. I was in Vistage for 5 years, great experience. The last year or so was during COVID years, and everything was done Zoom. I was not at all focused. I hated those 8 hours in a room felt like nothing back then, because we used to be 8 hours and a speaker, and then we'd have lunch, and then we'd have breakfast, and then we'd go out for drinks and dinner. Like 8 hours wasn't enough with these people that once a month we would go out to dinner. Yet, why was 8 hours torture on Zoom or video? I mean, I couldn't stand it. I was writing emails. I was having side meetings. I was in and out, in and out. It was to me torture. It was absolute torture to me. So I left the group. I came back when when it was back on site. I just couldn't do it. It's the same thing, right? When you're in person, you're connecting on a human level versus a video where you're multitasking, barely listening, so on and so forth.
I don't know how that could be disputed. Like if
They
we had a
find
third
ways.
party on this call, how is any of that disputable, right? Like when you date, if you're dating someone and you meet them on one of these apps, yes, you're meeting them for the first time there, but how do you sort of uh, cement that relationship? How do you take it to the next level? It's you meet them in person. You don't continue messaging them and doing FaceTime. At some
Yeah,
point, you have to sit
have to
down with them
connect.
face to face and connect. That's the only way the relationship moves to the next level. So, what I say to the team is with clients or your peers, you can start the relationship on Zoom, but how do you really build deep connections? It can never be happy hour Zoom. It's got to be happy hour in person,
Yeah.
right? We always leave a client meeting in person and we say the same thing. We accomplish so much by meeting with this client for 3 hours. We accomplish so much. That's like the thing that always is said whenever you leave a meeting with a client.
That's it's huge, man. I agree with you. What's the as we slowly wrap up, what's the single most impactful piece of advice you've received in your career that you'd like to give back to the world?
I'd say it's probably, I think the single most meaningful piece of advice is the road is going to be bumpy. Like life is very hard. There's no escaping it. You will endure a lot of pain and suffering. That is inevitable. It doesn't matter. There's going to be ups and downs, right? So, like, the sooner you embrace that and not reject it, the better off you will be, right? People think they're supposed to love every aspect of a job. People think everything at a company is supposed to go smoothly. They think that their manager is supposed to be perfect and the job is supposed to be what it says on paper and all of these things. So I just tell people, um, my superpower is the ability to endure pain and suffering. So
Wow.
like I think that the sooner you can understand that stress is not abnormal, we all have it. We should never live in a state of constant stress. That's not what I'm saying, but stress is perfectly normal. And the sooner you accept that and know that it will pass, the more easy you get through it. Like that's just how it's going to be. And as you ascend in your career, right, you get more title, more responsibility, more money. You have kids, you get married, you have a mortgage, you have car payments, you have school payments. Stress just piles up,
Yeah.
right?
Get ready
So
for
that's
it.
okay. That's okay. The key is how do you prepare for that? And that's when we start talking about something different, which is investing in yourself, in your mind, in your body by way of nutrition, sleep, training. There's
Yep.
all of these things you need to do to prepare yourself for what is coming. And so I always say to people, make sure that you take care of yourself because what I know is it's going to be difficult. And the more you invest in yourself, the better prepared you are when those things happen to you.
I love that. For me, it's like I've always said, embrace the struggle. Don't accept it, embrace it. Almost enjoy is a big word. In Stoicism, the concept is it is, right? It's almost like it is what it is. There's nothing to talk about. It is, right? That's the entire concept is, dude, it is what it is. So now what, right? So what, now what? And so that's huge. A lot of times people are running from not only problems, potential problems they're running from. An actual problem doesn't even exist. They're running from a potential problem that may or may not come, which is crazy to me. So I think that's good advice. And then for those of us that don't know what you do, tell us a little bit about the business and how people can find you.
Yeah, 415 Digital is a growth marketing firm. So we help businesses scale through advertising on Google, Microsoft Bing, Facebook. LinkedIn, TikTok, so all the social media channels and search engines. So whether you're a small business or a large business, we have true SMBs to enterprise size companies that we work with. You're looking for sales, conversions, leads, anything conversion related. We are experts at sort of media buying. We also do design work, reporting, tracking, all of those things. So we're helping companies in a lot of different categories scale through digital marketing.
How do people find
you?
you?
Can find us, 415digital.com, FOUR15digital.com. And there's a contact us button on the website, and you can click on that, fill out the lead form, and we could sort of get in touch with you.
It's been amazing, Borja. Thank you for your incredible insights. We learned so much, not just about advertising and leadership, but kind of our, I almost want to say, on our advice about misconceptions and bad advice, and hopefully people take it to heart, especially young people, and hopefully businesses think about this too, because a lot of times we feel alone, right? We feel alone that the world is doing this and I feel like a jerk for not doing everything's doing. Don't worry about other people, right? As a business person, just like we told people not to listen to anyone except the people that can help them, don't listen to all the fluff out there. Do you, be you, right? If you're comfortable with remote, do remote. Just have the right structure. If you're not comfortable with remote, don't do it. Don't let the pressure get to you, right? Just do you, be yourself, because at the end of the day, you're only going to be able to blame yourself, and so do what you're comfortable with.
Yep. I like we say this a lot at the company, which is take ownership, right? Like this is your journey, right? Make it about yourself. And what do you want this journey to be? What do you want this story to be? Make it you, right? Like don't worry about your colleague and don't represent them or don't speak on their behalf. This is your journey. It's about you. You have the chance to make it what you want to be. Focus, get work done, contribute, and you'll be fine.
Thank you for being here, Borja. We've learned so much, man. Let's stay in touch. And that brings us to the end of another great episode of the Tech Leaders Playbook. I want to thank you for joining us and hope you took away some valuable insights to apply in your professional journey. Don't forget to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform so you don't miss out on the next great conversation. I promise it'll be good. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd appreciate if you could leave us a review. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but also help others discover the podcast. Better leaders mean better working environments. Better working environments leads to happier people. Remember, a rising tide lifts all boats. I'm Avetis Antaplyan, and this has been the Tech Leaders Playbook. Keep leading, keep learning, keep giving, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, stay inspired, my friends.